Skevich,
Here.
Castle,
Here.
Costa,
Present.
Gibbon,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
Richards is out, Peoples is out, Schools is out, Boyd here, Fields.
Here.
Awesome. Can I get a motion for the approval of last meeting?
I'm gonna move to amend. Draft, I spoke to Katie about this, there's a, amounts to a typo on the report of the vote on renewing our membership to the Equal. Draft minutes said the motion was passed on the table, so I moved to delete the sentence.
Second.
Skevich,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Boyd, yes.
I moved to approve the minutes. Mr. Chair.
Second.
And Skevich.
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Boyd, yes. And we're gonna go into our public comment, except Skevich.
Consulate.
Notice, I do want to remind everybody, our public comment is 3 minutes per person, and this is an opportunity for us to be able to hear you. Thank you.
Camera there, Consulate.
Camera.
Oh,
So
here,
if you want to go to the end of the table, just have it where.
congratulations on the victory for it being independent. It's not like that. I've been praying for you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I've been emailing you, but I haven't gotten a response back. Am I supposed to look at you or that?
That's it, you can.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good.
The microphone does kind of pick up what makes in that way, but it's okay if you want to talk to me.
I wrote you a brief letter. I can't stay this evening. I whole bunch of stuff. I would like for you to put in place a community conversation between the Akron Police Department, the Summit County Sheriff's Department, and the citizens of Akron. But pistols aside, it's time for conversations. Obviously, pistols don't work, everybody's getting murdered by guns. But we need a community conversation. It could be in Lot 3, it could be wherever you want to have it. But it's time for people to talk to one another. My second concern is one of the citizens of Akron is requesting, and also a citizen of Suffolk County, that the National Guard come in to Akron to address this gun violence. It's out of control. And my last concern is, I'm very concerned about my own safety compromise due to the fact that Cleveland Police and Indianapolis, Indiana, and Marion County Sheriff and Police Department violate all of my protection orders. I have one now. And I'm denied equal protection under the law because I'm not white, and because I'm not male, because I'm not gay, and because I'm not married. And I'm having some real serious issues right now. I'm currently displaced as a result. And I want to make sure that no one in Cleveland or Indianapolis, Marion County, or Cuyahoga County is communicating with Akron Police, Summit County Sheriff's Department to make them safe. Because I'm very uncomfortable right now. And when they do things, it goes national. And my reports of abuse have gone nowhere. So I am very concerned. I'm asking that you all will look into that. Because I'm a proactive, not a reactive person. We need preventive measures and not reactionary measures. My life does that. And I wrote it for you in writing. And I thank you so much for what you're doing. You were definitely missed when you went to football coach field or whatever you were doing, you were definitely missed. Tell Mr. Peoples he was missed. And I don't want to come here act like I'm telling you all what to do. I want you all to tell me sometime what you need me to do. And I'll help you do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a blessing, everybody. Okay.
Thank you.
And once again, do you want me to do something with this for you all?
So that was, I put those are copies of the motion.
Do you have somebody you want me to make it known to anybody or anything like that? In the community?
Thank you for offering, but I was gonna mention that those were up there when we get to that. I just in case anybody wanted to hard copy.
Okay, I'll make sure the meeting I'm going to have it.
If you like.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, all right, God bless y'all, have a good evening.
Yeah.
Lee Holden, please.
You ready?
Hello.
Wow.
How you doing? Thank you all for the work that you're doing. I have a couple of items of feedback from the last meeting that I attended. One, and they're both very simple. One is to speak out loud and clear for those of us who have old ears. Sometimes it's hard to hear what you're saying. And the other is another matter of clarity, that when you mention an organization or a person for the first time, if you would identify that person's role. And for example, last time you made a motion about paying dues to an organization, and it wasn't clear to me as a member of the public what that was about. So just a little bit for clarity, bring us along. We want to help you do your work. The other, my other comment has to do with
Potomac.
I've knocked on a lot of doors to persuade voters to vote for issue 10, and at that time I had a very strong sense of urgency, as did they. They were eager to see a board in place and to get on with the work. And now that you're part of city government, I know there's a lot to learn about HR and bills and that sort of thing. But I guess I would encourage you to see how much of your time and energy can shift from the bureaucratic stuff. It's easy to get hung up in the kind of the flypaper of bureaucracy, but how much of that can shift to the mission work that you have. One of the issues that I hear people talk about a lot is training of police officers. So that might be something that could go on, a study that could go on even without having a lot of complaint information. So just I bring to you my sense of urgency, and I'm sure that I know you're all trying to do the best job possible, and so let the public, as a previous speaker said, let the public help you with that. Tell us what we can do.
Thank you, Ms. Holden. Is there anyone else who did not fill out a form who would like to speak?
Thank you so much, everyone, for your comments. Really appreciate it. And also just your willingness to want to help. Thank you for that. Next, item 4 on our agenda is Mr. Field and Associates Incorporated report out. Is that Mr. Field?
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Like to report out that beginning on July 11th, 2023, I initiated my agreement with the city of Akron for a 12-week period as the auditor. Since that time, I've reviewed several documents of existing arrests, use of force, vehicle pursuits, citizens complaint procedures, agreement between the city, internal police lodge number 7. I'm happy to say that today I was on board. I had a chance to meet with HR, Deputy Chief Brian Harding, also with Greg Morgan from the prosecutor's office. Had an opportunity to learn what the city's perspective was as far as my role as the interim auditor. Had a chance to go over to this building, see the excellent tour of the building by Deputy Chief Hart. Had the opportunity to meet with Officers Beck and Spano. Officer Beck's her individual that handles the incoming citizens complaints. Mr. Spano is going to be the officer that handles use of force events. So we had a real meaningful conversation. I got an opportunity to meet Lieutenant Courtney, their supervisor, just, some of the things that we discussed today was. I'll have to admit to you right at this point, and I'm a little perplexed as to exactly what the expectations of the board is going to be with regards to my role as opposed to what the information that I gleaned from my on-board meeting today. Basically, my understanding of my on-board meeting.
Mr. Field, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Privately.
Oh, okay, all right. So, that's about all I have.
You got your thing.
Have my bag.
So is your onboarding complete? As of today?
It's complete with the exception of I need to get the IT and set up the computer and the Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Fields, will you be holding office hours, like public hours that you were consistently going to be in the office? And if so, have you determined exactly when those hours will be?
We discussed that, but at this point, I don't have a key to the building, to the office of the auditor, so. Yeah, limbo as far as how it's going to work.
It will probably be best that you can obtain a set office hour schedule once you're able to assume full responsibility of your role, such as getting a phone from Mr. Peoples and being able to, fully execute your role. So it's a great question. We did talk about it with them initially. We'll probably better have it established once he's fully in his role.
And we'll have a key for you as well.
Beyond the direction, I guess, with respect to it's just us providing clarity as is there anything else that you need from us that you feel that you don't have at this point?
No, that's.
Okay. Please don't hesitate to reach out if that is the case.
Yeah. We stay in pretty much close contact. I know this is kind of a difficult transition. More reasons than one, but he's been in contact. Consistent.
Mr. Field,
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Fields, what I think we'll probably do, maybe towards the end of this meeting, we'll just get a little bit clarity as to the conversation that you had with the officers that you met with today, including Mr. Morgan, and then we can just kind of get some clarity before you meet today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you HR committee for helping to kind of shepherd move that along. Really appreciate it. Right, going into our subcommittee report outs. First is governance. Skip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee met yesterday evening. We briefly discussed the motion to request that the law department prepare legislation to approve our rules, which was moved last week and tabled 2 weeks ago and tabled. We saw no reason not to bring the matter off the table today without amendment. And so I would move that the item be moved from the table for any further discussion and hopefully floor vote.
I guess we have to speed. What
I
I
want
want
to
to go ahead.
And I'm sorry, as I said to Apostle, but a hard copy of the motion is on the table. There are a few copies if anyone wants them. But this is a resolution to you, Mr. Chairman, to request the law department to prepare legislation for city council approving our rules that we adopted on July 12th. And further requesting that you request of the president of council that the legislation be acted upon promptly in favor. Again, recalling that we had not realized that we needed to request legislation to be prepared. thinking that it would simply be done automatically. That's not the case. And so the purpose of this resolution is through you to make the request for the legislation from the law department, and then asking council to act upon it favorably. So that resolution was moved 2 weeks ago and seconded, discussed somewhat, and then was tabled.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
the motion is to remove it from the table.
So we're not.
It has to come back off the table before we can.
Okay, so
So I move it be removed from the table.
And then once it's removed from the table, you are requesting that our chair will request from the law department to go ahead and move forward with legislation.
Then if it comes, once it's back in front of us, then it can have further discussion and a vote.
Yeah, we'll have to table and discuss whether.
okay,
So I make that motion.
I'll
Second.
second.
Naskevich,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Casa,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Boyd, yes.
So are there any questions particularly that members have, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
It was, I want to be careful because, some of the concerns I had was brought up during our executive session. But it was my knowledge that we were gonna have but this was not going to be brought on the table. We weren't going to move forward with this legislation until we further discuss this matter with the law department.
That's not my recommendation. I mean, I think it's timely to, I mean, if members don't want to act on it, that will be the decision. But my own view is that it's timely to move this forward.
Why?
Because we need our rules acted on by council. And until we act, apparently procedurally, until we ask law department, prepare legislation, nothing will happen. So I think that is why I think that we need to move matters forward by requesting legislation.
No, I want to wait till we hear back from the law department before we move into asking legislation. And plus, we're missing 3 board members tonight. So I want to be conscientious of them as well. And I know that I asked the law department not to come tonight because we were missing. They were supposed to come in tonight and actually talk to us about it. So I told them not to. I told them to wait till our next one because we're missing 3 board members. And I didn't feel comfortable moving on without everybody kind of hearing the same thing at the same time.
I did not realize that.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. Like I said, I got texts throughout the course of the day of different people saying that they wouldn't be here and just didn't feel comfortable moving forward and having a meeting.
But before we move forward, I just want to kind of get on the same table because I was under the impression that we were going to revisit having a conversation with the law department before we make decisions. And so this is just kind of news to me that that's not a plan.
Well, we seem to have been in some confusion. That was, we not have an executive session last week on this matter. And it was my understanding that members were prepared to move forward, but particularly if the chairman is not, then we not. I think the problem is that we find ourselves in a procedural limbo. And I've said this before. I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unnecessary. That is where we find ourselves. And neither do I believe we have to have an open mind. But we made our decision about the scope of the rules, the scope of our authority, after much discussion and over many weeks, with opportunity for input from the law department, the FOP, members of the community. With all that, we made our decision. If we're going to reconsider that decision, well, then we will. I personally think that's unwise. That we need to move this matter forward. And I'm personally satisfied that the rules as we adopted them are proper, should not be reconsidered. And I would like to see the matter go to council, which is where it now properly belongs. If they want to get input of the law department before they act on our rules, then they will. But I think we need to have a decision from council, up or down. Either they approve these rules, I hope they will, or if they don't, we will revise them. But we need to be able to move forward. As long as we stay in this limbo, we're not moving anywhere, which is why I thought that this resolution was the way to move the ball. But if members are not comfortable doing it tonight, won't.
Mr. Chair, thank you. We have not had the ability and the opportunity to have the law department give us their perspective of our rules, not all of us together collectively. And I think it's fair and best that we can all hear the review of the law department on our resolution before we. So,
I couldn't agree more. I think we have a duty actually to hear out the law department at this point, regardless if the opportunity was provided for them to give informal review. I think it's been clear that we haven't all received that feedback. And if we're good with the rules and the shape that they're in, then one could venture that even after we have our conversation, we still move forward, push through it. But I would like to be aware of what the law department's position is on our rules, especially knowing that they're going to move forward to council and have an idea of some of the things that city council may be considering with respect to the rules and how they may impact our ability to move forward. So I'm on the same page. I really think it's best that we wait until we do hear back from council. But I think that the law department, but I think that we need to push for that sooner than later.
That was my question. Is the law department aware that we're wanting this from them? Are they aware of that?
they were going to come tonight. But
Okay.
Mr. Boyd just mentioned that because 3 members weren't here, it's best to
Right,
kind of postpone.
so that'll be on the agenda when we do meet with the law department. That'll be on the agenda. As far as I'm concerned, that's the only thing that needs to be on the agenda when we talk with the law department. They need to give us a definitive answer on what they're going to do this for us.
I would only say that if the law department is going to have to, and if they are going to request that they speak to us in executive session, that the grounds for doing that, legal grounds for doing it, clear and supportive. I think the question's been raised about the last executive session. I was uncomfortable with it, but the law department, the law director said that there were grounds. We need to be clear about that. I don't mind getting advice of meeting. Frankly, I think that's preferable. They should say what they say to the public. I just hope that we don't now find ourselves left in limbo because the law department does not find it timely to provide that input to us. It's an easy way to keep this from moving forward. You've already had, having been told by members of the law department, legislation moving forward, without a request from us. We should plan on being at council on the 24th of July. And then we weren't even told directly, but then, oh no, we have to request legislation. I think from what's occurred, it's clear that the administration may not be eager to see this move forward in a timely way. And I do not think that helps this board. Heard from just this evening that there is some sense of the community wanting us to move forward. If we allow ourselves to get into these procedural traps where nothing happens, and we allow that to happen, nothing will happen. So I think it's a mistake, Mr. Chair. Of course, I'll defer to the desire of the board to wait to vote on such an important thing.
So I appreciate everybody's feedback, Mr. Gibbon and Mr. Costa, and also Ms. Thanksgiving. I also want to piggyback on what we heard in public comment. If nothing is going to move forward, I think we have to stop outsourcing that responsibility onto others. There's plenty for us to do. In spite of rules and passing, there's plenty of work for us to do. We have to build out a department, which is important. We have to get Mr. Fields, his team up and moving and running so that we can continue to work of the auditor's office, which is looking through some of these complaints, which is well within our authority to do that. I think too, from an investigative perspective, what we need to continue to do, and I think from public comment, Ms. Lee, she said this to us, is that, man, we can investigate the trends, we can investigate police policies and procedures as they are now. So we actually have plenty to do. And I don't think, and as chair of this board, I'm not gonna allow anything to be stalled, but I do want to walk circumspectly, as wise and not be foolish and just rush to something without the proper counsel, that I think would serve this board really, really well. And so I think from the standpoint of our committees, we have more than enough work to do. And I don't think nothing gets stopped. And I don't think nothing is not gonna happen because of the rules. I think the rules are important. And what I wanna hope to do, Mr. Gibbon, is I wanna be able to work with, as a board, we can work with the city of Akron, just like our HR committee has worked really well with our HR department for our city. I think that we can do the same thing with the law department. If we just take a beat for a second and take a deep breath and say, hey, listen, let's listen and let's hear what they have to say and from the alignment. If we all agree from that, Mr. Gibbon, that we want to continue on as they are, then man, it's well within our right to do that. But I just don't feel comfortable moving forward without, first of all, not having the 3 board members here and not having, as Mr. Costa said, everybody hearing this kind of at the same time and being able to pose some of their own questions and concerns about it. I just don't want to push this on simply because you believe it's in our best interest to do that. And I think.
No, I spoke up, Chair.
No, and I think what I want to make sure of is that I'm doing what's in the best interest of our board as a whole. And I want to give our board the opportunity, everybody that is present and not present, the opportunity to hear from it. And that's the only reason why I asked the law department not to come. That was the decision I made. I apologize if I made that in haste, but I believe it was the right thing to do for the betterment of our board collectively. So that's all.
If I may.
He didn't really do it in haste. We talked about.
Let me say that, Mr. Chairman, I think, I really do not think it is correct to say that I have tried to rush this. I have not.
I said we.
Well, it has not been a rush process. It's a process which has gone now over months, with in a 2-step process, the authority resolution, which went over weeks with discussion, then the rules over weeks with discussion. That is not rushing. That is not rushing. And I'm not asking this be done simply because I personally think this is in the best interest of the board. That is not the case. And I have to say, Mr. Chairman, that had I understood that you would be saying and taking the position you are now before the meeting, I would not have moved to take the matter off the table. I think we need to communicate there. So I'm sorry, sir, but that is my view. If I'd known, I wouldn't even have brought it up. I did in good faith, thinking that it was intended to be on the agenda. Still wish we would do it, but I understand we should not. All right. So
Thank you, Mr. Gibbon.
All I want to know is when we do meet with the law department, are they going to be of the understanding that this is a priority for us and this is something that we're going to be expecting for them to tell us when we meet with them in 2 weeks?
To tell us what?
That this legislation is what we're going to expect them to opine on what we're trying to do here with it.
I believe they do expect that.
Okay.
I don't think we have that. The law department works at the law department's pace. I think that we can push for however much priority we want, but at the end of the day, things move at the pace that we want.
I understand that, but I understand it, but all I'm saying is they need to know that this is our agenda for meeting with them. That's all I want.
And I believe, because it sounds like they were planning to come tonight, I can only assume that they were prepared to follow up based on our last executive session. So I do think that that is a priority because they were planning to come tonight. It was our decision to tell them to.
Anything else, Mr. Gibbon?
well, there are 2 things, but I'll move to the resolution back up to.
Second.
Anskevich,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Floyd.
Yes.
The other thing that we did last night is that we, kind of going to what you were saying, Mr. Chairman. In a sense, is our larger priority, which is, taking a larger view of what's going on with the department and, leading towards what would be our report and like I said, recommendations next week. This too was something we talked about 2 weeks ago. But last night I'd done a very preliminary draft of kind of trying to lay out in orderly fashion, what are the topics that we want to be looking at, collective bargaining, obviously, particular policies and practices of the department, how they operate, how they recruit, how they retain, and so on and so on. So lay that out, and we had significant discussion. Councilwoman Amobian joined us for the meeting and contributed to that as well. So that is underway. And if any members want to, participate now at this stage of the process, that'd be most welcome. I'd be happy to share that draft. Anybody, governance will meet again, I suppose in 2 weeks. I don't know.
And for context, this is a rough outline of topics and sessions to be covered in our annual report. So, yes, so. So we just kind of go right in. I mean, the reality is at the end of the year, we have to bring forward a report to address the Akron City Council as well as the mayor's office with recommendations and findings based on the year. So governance has kind of stepped into the preliminary process of really building out the framework or a high level outline and saying, okay, what needs to be included in that. And so it's very like early infancy stage. But then again, this kind of goes back to the additional work that does need to get done, and what we do have to get done. And so that is what governance is working on right now as well.
And I'm sure you're being mindful that there's only 4 months left to be choose. So what are we gonna put in? What is it that we want to?
Well, that's what this process is about. I mean, and I think some of it is that we're going to have to decide whether the priority things will have the ability to look at and which are most important, to include as part of our report recommendations. This is a part that the report will also include just our activities. That's a whole other matter. But the items that we look at for the purpose of making recommendations, we're going to have to be very careful to call that to what we really do use. That's part of this process we're beginning to talk.
I'm going to sound really selfish in saying this. First of all, to the governance committee, appreciate the work because that is very important to what we're supposed to do as a board is to make sure that we're making those recommendations. I personally feel like it's something that we should all be a part of. I had no idea that that's what was going to be happening at the governance committee. I wouldn't have been able to make it because of the day that it falls on time. I would like to personally see us able to be a part of the process, even if it's a shared document that we can all entertain on our subcommittees. However, I'm under the impression that you guys are just building up the framework and then you guys will, I imagine, give us the information and then we can add to it instead of finishing it in the subcommittee.
Well, the outline, it may be in subcommittee. That's what I understood. Again, I want to make sure we're communicating. I understood that was a charge that we had. But the actual work of looking at the items, would be by various. I'm happy to reschedule the committee session. We just picked Tuesday at 5 because it sort of works. It's the day before these meetings and works on other stuff. I'm happy to reset that or have a special committee, special governance committee at an entirely different time, for the purpose of going over this report, if there are people who want to do that. I'm not trying to exclude anyone. Nevertheless, the work needs to be done, cannot be done by the board as a whole. It has to be.
And I would agree, Ms. Gibbon. That was the charge and the understanding. I know that as a chair that I understood it to be. And it's not anything that you all are finalizing. All these things become drafts for us to all look at, to read, to measure, to examine, and to ask questions of, not like final, this is what it is.
Yeah, so ideally, and again, it's not, you guys have done fabulous work in this committee. And, to your credit, a lot of that is because of the hard work that you guys are doing when they're not present. But maybe even just moving forward, if we could get like draft copies brought to our main meetings, that we could just look over.
I would rather, I'll put that document up as a shared document in the governance for each self-file.
Anything else, Skip?
No, sir.
Costa?
I will share, I was gonna say this for new business, but it is fairly, I guess, related to the work that we do in governance. In our August 8th meeting, while we began the conversation about potential topics to be addressed within our report recommendations, we also kind of talked about a list of topics kind of that, while we are still looking at the rest of the 4 months of the year, that we felt that it was important for the board to kind of dive into and kind of made in essence, not a priority list, but a list of just topics that we felt that are important. I met today with a group of 12 really excited law students at the University of Akron Law School. And from that list of, I guess, topics, those broad topics that we discussed, shared with them some of the topics that we're interested in getting additional feedback, research into. And so these are consistent with, and I believe I sent out an email to the full board with a series of proposed topics. We took that exact list and then we kind of reprioritized it based upon what we've learned over the last few weeks. And I took that exact list and shared that with the law students broadly and asked if they could then kind of pitch back ideas or let us know which of those topics that they were interested in. And, and this included, how use of force policies in Akron compared to other similar sized cities, national best practices with regards to traffic stops, non-traditional response units, training, duty to intervene, all of these topics that we've been talking about. And so I just wanted the board to be, I want to be clear and let the board know that that's what's happening. And ask if there's anything that's missed or anything else that we want to get some assistance with. Please do let me know so I can communicate that with that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. All right, thank you to our governance subcommittee. Next, we're going to go to Human Resources and Finance Subcommittee. Sri.
Yes, so first and foremost, we want to again thank Yamini and the HR committee for just being really flexible to help us while our fearless leader is out, Bev Richards. Yamini, is there anything that you wanted to add about the process of onboarding with Mr. Fields or?
Yeah, I thought we had a productive discussion today regarding Mr. Fields. Well, as far as the onboarding piece, yes, we're going to be getting a laptop and a phone, which is in the process, and I'm getting him a email so that he will be able to communicate with. And I told him that he is free to talk to me, Craig Morgan, and with Deputy Chief Harding. We were all present there. Stacy Doty was there too, so that he has internal connection for people, how to connect with people, how to get things. And the issue regarding the office, I thought when we left, we were interested in working out of your office, so we can discuss like how we want to have that location. But we can have it, we can figure that out.
Is he going to get the phone that Mr. Peoples has now, or is he getting a different phone with a different phone?
I'll have to see how I'm doing. I think they were planning on getting him a laptop and a phone. I'll talk about it tomorrow.
Do we have a timeline? Do we have a timeline on when you can actually start taking clients? Is there a timeline for that?
I mean, he's able to begin, we're just trying to logistically get him going here, so I didn't want him walking in and, you know, figuring out where to go, what do I do, who do I talk to, so the first step was connect, who the people you need to connect with internally. And I think he's free to go ahead and do that, I think it would be beneficial, we'll get him that right, I mean, that's not gonna take too long.
Like the laptop, when will we get the laptop?
I use, here's the answer that, maybe a day or two. couple days to
It's
get it
fairly quick turnaround time from the time that we're sent request to do so.
I think Stacy sent it today, so
Okay.
after our meeting.
So the
Check it
request
out
has
today,
been
so-
sent already for the laptop.
Yes, the request. So,
And then I just wanted to clarify our expectations for Mr. Fields is that his office hours are conducted in Mr. Young's old office.
So that was gonna be my question, like, I think probably best practice is gonna be for him to be in his Young's office to conduct, I believe, oversight business.
and that's fine.
And I know there's renovations and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's the issue, I think, is that there were some renovations that were going on. And so I don't know, Bert was saying that they were working through that, they were having to do some flooring renovations in that office for safety purposes, so I believe that that's a concern. But,
The office in the county.
the plan is ultimately that their office will be in the OKC. Okay, that's the goal, to have the three individuals in that location. There is some, transitional, some work that needs to be done. But, I didn't know if in the meantime, he was able to continue to work through his office, or we will try and find a location for him. Space is a big issue for new hires, folks coming in, so that's just an issue. But we can try to find something.
Yeah, I think probably from a best practice perspective, it may be, as long as it's safe to work out of Mr. Young's office, if that is a possibility for that to happen, I just think that's gonna be, from a standpoint of consistency and best
Yeah.
practice.
No, I got it.
That's gonna be helpful, I think, for all of us. And so if we can, I think we much rather prefer that.
Okay, I will talk to them, understand that's not our space, that's
Okay.
county space. So
Gotcha.
we're kind of leasing county space, so county is kind of like, we have to do some work in there, so. It's a little bit of a,
Okay.
how it works. So I will look into that.
Thank you.
I understand you want him within the city internally as a player, so I get that point, try to. work something.
And it's just largely, Mr., I just want to say this on record, because your business conducts other businesses, I just don't, and this is a contract position, I just don't want to intermingle the two. And as best we can to avoid persons who have complaints, understanding that your role for here is to do this work, it's best to do it in a space that's not conflicting with their business. That's all.
And that's the optimal choice, however, since we've been on this board, I'm gonna say I have experience, I've noticed, the city tends to slow walk a lot of things. Next thing you know, 2 weeks have gone by, 3 weeks have gone by.
No, yeah.
I just want to make sure that we can start very, very, very soon. In some space down here, in the city somewhere. That's my biggest concern. I don't want another 2 or 3 week delay over space, if you will. Not having space for them to go and do the work.
Ms. Atkins, would we be able to hear something back possibly by the end of the week?
That's what I think. I think today was the first meeting, the first day I've been in, so, we need like at least 24 hours.
Yeah.
So
Understood.
we're-
I
we get to
understand, that's
go.
understood.
I get it, yeah.
And I'm not trying to press you, I'm just saying, it took, 5, 6, 7 weeks just for the contract. I was scared that just 3 months would be over before he could even start.
Well, he's got the connections in terms of who so he can start making requests, and get in touch with Deputy Chief Harding. He's connected in with some folks there. He can start retrieving information. The laptop issue should be done within the next day or so. That should not be the problem. Space is the only issue that I'm just trying to make
I
sure.
guess that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, but the work should be able, you can go ahead and retrieve it, should get going on that. We'll get some space going.
Thank you so much.
So am I clear in understanding that there is nothing else that Mr. Fields needs to get up and running besides laptop and space? and phone. Okay.
And
So,
so,
Email.
And
Then
then we
they'll
have to,
assign one when they
Yeah.
give them the laptop.
then we have to kind of allow Mr. Peoples to relinquish some of his current responsibilities. So that's the next step. The moment he gets a phone, then we're gonna just kind of officialize Mr. Peoples relinquishing responsibilities and fully give them to Mr. Peoples.
so we just need a phone.
If we get the phone from Mr. Peoples and another thing we need to do with Mr. Fields is to formalize how he's going to document complaints. There is a system that was created. We're going to finesse that based on the information we got from Mr. Morgan. But it is important, and I don't know if this needs to be said publicly, but we want to make sure that the board has access to see the progress and the different complaints that are coming in, regardless of whether or not you were available. And so that has to be public, and that's something we've been concerned about for the past few months. We haven't been able to have access to the information about the number of complaints, the number of calls, and so do have a skeletal spreadsheet that's available in Google Sheets. I'm going to talk with Bev tomorrow, and then we will go through that with you and kind of fine tune the Google Sheet document that we have to more so meet the information that Mr. Morgan provided us.
we'll probably do that, when we think subcommittee.
Yes,
We'll do that in our human resource subcommittee. That way it's more streamlined and we get more done, but my biggest concern now is I'm a real big thing on time and timeline. I just want to know, and maybe you can answer this, I don't know. I want to know when you can actually start in a space within the city of Akron. That's what I want to know today, if I can know that. Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks?
I don't expect it to be weeks.
Okay.
But I can't tell you the date today. But as far as him tomorrow morning getting up and connecting with the folks, we've established that. The work can begin as far as from our standpoint. Space is the only issue I'm trying to explain. It may take a couple days for us to finagle a location. It is an issue in the city. It is not trying to help anybody, but that is an issue. But we should be able to secure.
So does he need to be in that space to start taking complaints? Is my question.
No, and so, and I think it's a decision between me and you to finalize, but I feel he can just phone only complaints or email complaints. But I do not want individuals coming to your independent business.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And yes, you will still get credit for office hours.
Laptop.
Yeah, that should be done tomorrow. I think we can get a laptop for you tomorrow with an email. And then you can begin.
Thank you, Yana.
I just wanted to make one more point as we talk about the transition from Mr. People's fielding the complaints. I think it's more than just getting the phone.
You're right.
Last week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, we had requested that we as a board are able to access what has gone on since Mr. People started fielding those complaints, so we can make sure that there's follow-up and continuity. Based upon what he shared last week, there were still some things that were in progress that he had started, and there hadn't been follow-up. So I just want to make sure that we have that communication so that as we are passing that responsibility on, that we're not losing anything in translation. So I think it's twofold to this transition. It's the phone, but also that communication or that data documentation for the board that we can share with Mr. Fields as well.
And that's on Mr. Peoples to get that to us.
Can we work this? I know that, is there any way this week, Ms. Anastasia, I know Ms. Rita might be difficult for you just because it's during the day, that, and I know Mr. Peoples is off as well. Is there any way that the three of you all get together? Because I just texted him, he's able to drop off the phone on Friday. Okay, the three of you get together to do kind of this handoff, it's Ms. Castle's fault where he can now update Mr. Fields on those things that are in progress.
Me, myself, Mr. Peoples and Mr.
Yes.
Fields?
So if you can contact Mr. People, schedule a time
Okay,
for that to happen on Friday, I think that would be a good handoff versus Mr. People just giving it to us, and but I think them having a discussion or conversation about some of these things I think will be a little bit more productive, and then he can hand off the phone.
Yeah, sure, certainly, and I'll ask him if he can type up what Ms. Castle was just referring to as well. If he can type up notes about what he's done, who he's done it with, what complaints are outstanding still, give us a report.
Yeah.
On what needs to be done, what has already been done, what has yet to be done.
Absolutely. Okay. You'll reach out in the morning.
Yeah, sure, I'll call him tonight.
Thanks so much. Anything for finance?
Oh, sorry, one
All right.
last thing with HR. So tonight, I think, we will go into a brief executive session. We will go ahead and forward the vote for our admin position. And, Mr. Boyd, and I just want to know how you feel about that, because I did not anticipate that there were 3 people missing. But I did talk to Ms. Richards, and she was comfortable with us moving forward with the vote for our admin position tonight. But I don't know how you feel about having 2 other members missing. I wasn't prepared for.
No, I think it's okay for us to have that discussion.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to go into executive session for that.
The only reason is I didn't want, and you guys let me know, I don't know if it's formal or informal to do that. The reason was because I didn't know if we should mention the candidate's name.
Yes. This could be a matter of public record. Anyway, it needs to be, we can only vote to hire a person, so it's going to be a matter of record. I personally, unless there's something new about her, she seems really terrific. I think it's a yes tonight. Unless you've got something.
No, Mr. Boyd was not in that executive session last week, and we were just missing 2 other people. Yeah, we just want to just vote, that's absolutely fine. I didn't know if we could do that considering.
Considering it is, and this is, I can speak for a second, I'm sure. Since it is a personnel matter, you will have a candidate who will be rejecting, right?
Yes.
You have to. So that is something that generally HR matters are an exception that we'll do executive session for. But again, I'm not here as a law department. I'm just letting you know in the past that we've done.
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago, we had that, this already, so there'll be no reason to mention the person that we not.
Oh, okay, so,
Yeah, just the one that we are.
okay, yeah. We need to know that, okay, so we can get moving on.
Yes,
Okay.
so as soon as we vote on it, it's 2 Okay, I'd like to make a motion to take we need to vote on it right now. So we're still in second. Okay, no, we can go ahead and vote right. All right, so I'd like to motion that we take the matter of our admin personnel off the table and move to votes. That's it.
Second,
Skevich,
yes.
Gibbon, Reed,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Boyd, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve our candidate that we've selected. I think we need 2 separate motions for those. So we
Okay.
just took it off the table. Now we're gonna just go forward. Yeah,
Just say.
I'd like to move forward with voting for our candidate Leanne Foltz to be our admin position.
Second.
All right, let's move and vote.
Yes. And Skevich.
Reed,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Boyd. Shoot, yes. All right. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Great.
Good work for you.
Moving right along.
I heard somebody, I got.
Right. Thanks so much, HR, for your hard and diligent work in that, and also thank you to City's HR department, Ms. Atkins, your team. Anything?
I just have to ask Ms. Atkins a question. So do we contact her or do you guys contact?
So we
Prefer
prefer
you guys to.
Yeah, normally, but
Okay,
someone like, oh, that's fine, but let us, let's make sure we're in coordination with that, so. Should I get
well, if that's what you normally
We're
do,
fine
go
to do
ahead
it.
to it.
Sure. Sure.
Because you're gonna have to talk to her about her onboarding
Right.
and everything anyway, so. Okay, yeah, so we prefer that. All right, cool.
And not much of a budget and finance update. I circulated an updated budget as of today. To the board a little earlier to this meeting. I'm still figuring out the workday access with respect to the call center. And budget just doesn't, the way that some of the, I guess, numbers have been added in, just, I want to work with the finance department to get you guys a more clear budget because I've got some, I've got concerns based upon how things have been moved around, but it does show that the $23,000 for Mr. Peoples' contract is covered and accounted for now in our budget. As well as I've reached out, just a side update, I've reached out to the folks with NAPOL, which is the National Association of Oversight, Citizens Oversight Board,
Oversight of law enforcement.
law enforcement.
National Association of Citizens Oversight of Law Enforcement.
Yes.
NACO.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I've reached out to request an invoice for us to pay our membership for the upcoming year. Which is due by August 31st. As soon as I receive that invoice, I will make sure that it's taken care of. So we're all the dues paid. But I'm going to provide a budget update. I know usually it's the second meeting of each month. I'm going to provide a budget or in-depth budget update at our next meeting. Just given the lack of in-depth, say. Now.
Thank you for doing, thank you for doing.
I just one detail. on the Budget report. Why haven't we not expended anything for fringe benefits?
So that's what I was referencing. The year-to-date expenditures are inconsistent. If y'all look at the budget that I circulated on. It would have been June 24th. The year-to-date expenditures there far exceed what shows up. The year-to-date expenditures as of today budget I circulated. So that's kind of what I need to get a handle on the finance department as to what's going on with the view within workday. How do I get a more accurate and reflective budget?
Thank you, Mr. Casa. We'll move forward with our community engagement subcommittee. Ms. Lewis is not here. Ms. Casa, did you have anything?
There is no report for community engagement this evening. We have not had a meeting since our last report.
Mr. Peoples is not here, and does anybody know anything regarding any complaints as he updated? Why didn't receive?
I haven't.
Last from him was 14.
No, I forwarded some to Ms. Skevich and also to Mr. Peoples. Should there be somebody else's?
Right. And he wrote, I believe he wrote back and said, I believe he contacted his contact at Akron Police Department. And I believe that person told him it was a one-liner or something like it's still being investigated. Well, there's nothing to report at this time.
Okay.
Something like that. Do you recall it being something like
I
that?
was not on that.
Okay, nothing to report this time. And so then Mr. Peoples wrote that to us. That there's nothing to report this time. So I don't know. I haven't spoken to Mr. Peoples. I haven't spoken to him since we spoke with him 2 weeks ago at the meeting. Ms. Castle was asking him, for a little bit more detail on what he's been.
I think, and the great thing is, I think we're gonna be able to get this.
I'm gonna actually call, I found that I can find when I seem to be able to reach him more in the evening hours.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna call him when I talk.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Skevich. All right, we're gonna move into item number 6, which is new business, APD roll call.
I did. And I everyone else. I expected more people to be here tonight, but, we had spoken to, I had sent out an email to everyone that we had had a meeting with, Deputy Chief Harding, who's here, last Monday, and he stated that he would be more than happy to, have us. I believe, Mr. Harding, you can chime in too, if you want us to come in threes or twos to the different roll calls. Understanding that no one's gonna come to the midnight shift, roll call.
That's my best
I
option.
mean, I'll say I am a night owl.
It's not that one. It's not that.
I am a night owl. I like the nighttime, so I wouldn't mind it, but come to the roll calls and just introduce ourselves as board members to the police officers. During the various roll calls that they have, we're not gonna take up a lot of time because they do have to get out on the street and do their work. And see if they have any questions. I was just individually introduce ourselves to them. See if they have any questions on this. So that's what we spoke with him about. He was in agreement with it. What do you want?
I think it's a really good idea, Ms. Anastasio. Just thank you for kind of leading the charge on that. And also thank you, Deputy Chief Harding. I think anytime we can kind of humanize ourselves to the police officers and them back, I think it'd be good starting. Just constant.
I was gonna say the more police and community engagement, the better.
Mr. Gibson?
Well, I'm all for it. I mean, I think we need to do it thoughtfully and Deputy Chief Harding, I think offered some good thoughts when we had a discussion. This is not something that we just casually do. I think in terms of who is in what groups, how many approach that's taken. I think it needs to be done carefully to be sure that it's a positive thing.
And it's
Effective. But I think it done that way, I think it's essential. Really remarkable.
Anything else?
I think it's a wonderful idea. I would love to participate. And I think the more we can engage with community members, including APD, I think it's very important.
So probably then what we'll do is, I mean, again, we have 3 people missing, so we need to hear from them, but I'll create some type of schedule, try to get it done within a certain amount of time to not take up too much of active police time, not to take up too much of our time.
Could you work with Deputy Chief Harding as far as just setting up kind of like the multiple times roll call? Like I don't mind doing it midnight, but it's a big deal.
I don't like nighttime.
I don't think it necessarily belongs in committee. I think it might maybe a little bit of an ad hoc committee, if you like. I think it'd be good if there would be a scheduled time when the issue of, okay, how are we gonna do roll call? It's going to be discussed and everybody who wants to participate in the discussion. Okay, what happened at that time?
You're confusing.
Well, like I was saying, I mean, I think that we need to figure out what's the best way to do roll call.
Well, that's what that's where Mr. Harding comes to.
Right, and Deputy Chief Harding would be more than welcome. It'd be a good idea to be at the meeting, but I would suggest that it be a scheduled session.
Oh, I see what you're saying, a board session.
Anybody, well, more like a committee meeting, but anybody on the board who wants to come be involved at that level. Okay, this is when we're going to discuss and figure out what to propose back to the board is the best way to do roll call.
What are the concerns about?
Yeah, I don't just saying, hey, this is who we are.
I'm seeing
Camp and thank you all. And
Well, I think, as I understand it from the discussion we had, I think it's expected to be more than that.
Why don't we let
No, I
Mr.
didn't hear that.
Mr. Harding, why
I
don't you?
guess all I was trying to say, we offer four times a day, we'll do roll call. Now, there's more. I know it may come into a longer debate or longer conversation. I was asking the board to be mindful that the officers will have to go out and answer calls and do that. They won't have an hour, 45 minutes. It would be maybe an introduction session. I mean, you guys can add whatever. I'm not saying I want to stop the debate. I just wanted to make sure that we understood that it's not a traditional meeting and they're going. The officers then also go out and have to respond to 911 calls. And do, I don't.
So what
They
we
may have
need,
not have a single question. They may have 200.
what we need
I
from
will
you
get the
then.
answers to that part.
So what we would need from you then
Sure.
is give it, just like we give, once people get up to do citizens, comment, we give them 3 minutes or whatever, right? So you need to give us the minutes on how much
I
time,
can help you. Sure.
okay?
Yes, no problem.
I could have a little bit. Mr. Chairman, that's exactly what I understood. That this is not just going to be a situation where, we would go and say who we are.
You want something more structured?
Well, I'm hearing that it's gonna be open for some period of time for questions from the
I
officers.
don't think he's given a definitive
No,
statement.
I'm saying, I think the introduction would be wonderful. If you do want questions, I'm sure you may get, I don't know what you'll get. I mean, you're gonna ask an audience of people, they may have one question, they may have 100.
I think these are the kinds of things that we would be well served by thinking through. As opposed to just deciding, okay, we're gonna do roll call without any
I
further
understand
thought
what you're
given to how to do it. And I think that a thoughtful process will be a better process.
Okay.
And it ought to be done, okay, here's when we're gonna have that conversation. Hopefully Deputy Chief Harding would be there to give his thoughts about it, how it would best work. And anybody who wants to participate at that level would come. Talk about it, we bring back, okay, this is what we think. We would really be doing it. Here's what we propose is how to do.
I think I understand where you're coming from, and I think it's important to just reiterate to everybody who's here now that we have to realize we're not gonna all go as 9 people together, we're gonna bifurcate it off and go different amount of people at certain times, but we should always be mindful of the fact that when we go out in public and speak, we're speaking on behalf of the entire board. I think that's kind of where you're coming from. So we have to be mindful of what we say and how we say it because it's going to reflect the entire board. I think that's where you come from. So therefore, we need to kind of have some kind of meeting beforehand to talk about how we're going to do this roll call thing. Okay. That's that. I don't have a problem.
Can I offer another perspective? So my takeaway when I think of roll call, I think of it just kind of being an introduction. Here we are. These are the times that we have board meetings on Wednesdays, you can engage in these committees, and then maybe we have a part 2 where it's similar to what we did with the meet, eat, and greet, where we do a little bit something that's more formal and we can have everybody. So I really think with this roll call, that it's just something that's kind of just short, sweet, here it is, and then if there are questions, we have maybe that follow-up plan for what that structure looks
And
like.
that might be a better way to do it. I'm just suggesting we work that out.
Yeah, and we won't, obviously, we wouldn't know if we would need that follow-up until after we get the first round of.
So that may be one way to do it, but that's what I'm saying. Call it an ad hoc committee, whatever you want to do. Let's think it through, figure it out. But we can start after we have that conversation, not to around the states.
If you two want to take lead on that, please do. I just need a slot in a time when you to show
Me
up.
too.
And I'm gonna show up.
Yeah.
And you're not limited to one, right? I mean, if you want to do one and come back again, we're not saying you get one chance and you gotta be perfect.
Right.
No, absolutely.
Again, that's what I'm saying, trying to say, Mr. Giffen, instead of having a formal meeting about how we're gonna do roll call, just everybody go into it with the mindset of knowing what you do and what you say is gonna reflect the entire board.
I don't agree. I think it would be better to do it with some time. Again, if it's not the feeling of the board that that's necessary, then do it.
What do you think, Mr.?
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
I think we gotta be mindful of what they're about to go do. They're headed into work at this time.
Right,
It's no different than, if firemen were headed to go into work. We don't want to take up too much time.
exactly.
And so I think it needs to be an introduction. Hi, I'm Tristan. This is what I do. We want to invite you out. If you want to come out to a meeting, have a good night.
If you have any questions.
Yeah, they're on their way to work.
Yeah, right.
Could that also be done in conjunction with the ride along?
The board's been, I think several members of the board have available.
Yes.
We'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, I thought I had that on.
Yeah, it is whole business.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
do you have anything else, Mr.?
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show up, say what's up.
Yeah.
Let's do it right.
So you and I will email you tomorrow and you can give me your,
And I also provided Lieutenant Forney's would be a great point of contact as well, because he
Okay.
handles all this patrol, can make sure all the captains know that you're going to be there.
Okay.
But either one of us.
if you could email me the shifts and what time the roll call takes
Sure,
place.
sure. Yep. We can get you all that.
Thank you. I saw you on TV last night.
Right. And, on a new business, we have, we have an item B, retreat survey.
Yeah, Barb Green has been sending out, have you all
Yes.
done the survey? I have not done it yet. I have not gotten to it yet. And we need to complete her survey before we can move forward with the second half of our retreat. Has everyone, have you, so I haven't either. I haven't done it. Mr. Costa,
I have not.
I have not either. Tristan?
Done mine.
I had it in my heart.
Okay, me too.
Done mine.
Ms. Caitlin?
I started it, I just haven't submitted it yet, but it is started.
Yeah, I tried to do mine and then there was a roadblock and I contacted her and she said she straightened out the glitch, but I have not gone back to it yet. So I may have to contact one of you guys to see how did you get back to it.
You put on the record, that share.
Yeah, I got you.
You just
Yeah.
did it.
I saw the hand up and everything.
That I did it, along with having 6 kids.
Uh-huh.
Coach Angle is.
Yeah,
I'm gonna re-forward the email concerning the survey to everybody, so I need to copy your response.
thank you.
Thank you. Whole business, AT ride-alongs, I think we just talked
We
about.
just
that.
talked about that.
Good.
Everybody be on their own with that. If you want to ride along, just, you've already done it, I think.
I've done one.
You've done one. And, who do we call for that? Just. Mr. Hurst?
You can reach out to me, Lieutenant Forney. I sent, I believe you and Mr. Boyd, again with our patrol operations, so he can coordinate with you
Okay,
Chef, to make
cool.
sure you're there. But if
Okay.
you don't, if you need it again, I can send that again, or you can reach out to me.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Awesome.
All right. Oh,
Next thing on business, I'd like to make a motion that we revisit and look into reallocating some funds to members' compensation. I say this for 2 reasons. The first reason is I think that there's a lot happening and going on. Revisiting this conversation from a while ago, that I think it was Ms. Reed, Ms. Anniscape brought up at first, that I think we do need to revisit it because there is 4 months left in the year. So there's monies that we have within our budget that may need to be reallocated because obviously we're not going to spend it. So what we've been told is we don't spend it, then we lose
we
it.
lose it.
And then I think as we move forward and we do a budget for 2024, I think we have to keep in mind that for whoever comes behind us, we want to make sure that there's a compensation there that is worthy of the time and I think the value that it's going to take to continue to run this board and to have this board continue to go deeper and further as we build this foundation. And so I want to make a motion for that, that Costa and his team, as far as with our city, look at how can we look to reallocate some of the funding to up some of the compensation of us as board members, not just for us, but for those who come behind us as we move forward.
Are you making a motion?
I did.
I second it.
We can have further discussion.
I think everyone's been, Mr. Chair, if it's okay. I think everyone's been made well aware of my positioning. I think in the past, there's ideas that compensation leads to less passion and less fortitude in the objectives that we are seeking to put forward. And it's just simply, in my opinion, it's just not true. I think it's important. Every single individual on this board is highly respected. Your time is very important and valuable. And, you know, when we talk about being very cautious with tax dollars, these are our tax dollars as well. So, my tax dollars, I would not have a problem. Any of the funds that I contribute to the city of Akron to get here because of the hard work that you do, that we do together. And I've been advocating for this, not because I need anything, but because I feel that you all deserve, based on the work that's being put forward, you guys deserve more compensation.
And you know, and if I could just, you know, add to that. Human beings are human beings, and if you're working hard and you feel you're not being compensated, It's very easy for people to step back and say, oh, I'm not gonna go tonight, I'm not gonna go, or I'm not gonna do this task, I'm not gonna do that task, I'm not getting paid anything for it anyway. And that's how people think, whether we like it or not, that's how people think. And so, everyone here on this board is talented, we're using our talents. We are trying to build something that's going to hopefully, stand the test of time. For 20 years down the road, what we build is going to be in place for the next people, as our chairman has already mentioned, to take over. But we're doing the hard work in building it right now. We're already doing the hard work, and the hard work that we're doing in building it, they won't have to do. They'll just be able to pick up what we built and move forward. And the compensation is, I think it's appropriate. And I don't think it has anything to do with our desire to do the work that we're doing. We would not have been doing it for this long already without the proper compensation. If we didn't care, we didn't have the passion to do it.
I think from a from a practical standpoint, I think that there are just some uncertainties with respect to if we're going to have a new auditor hired in. If we're going to have a deputy auditor hired in the rest of the year, that has implications based upon the remainder of the budget. As well as the fact that we are still paying out benefits to our auditor. So I think that's my biggest, without my personal opinion, I think that is my biggest concern. It's just like, what does that look like? What are our realistic expectations with respect to us being able to hire out for those positions for this year, take that into account consideration, I guess, before, or at least factor that into, any type of discussion or analysis as to additional compensation.
To your point, and made much sense the last time that this topic was brought up about just making sure that we have the funds available to pay for our future positions that we look to fill. We are not going to be reviewing any candidates for the auditor position until November. That's what the charter says, that we can't hire a new auditor or continue with another auditor until November. Is that wrong?
My assumption was that we would be considering, hopefully be in a position to actually hire an auditor so that there's continuity after the current auditor ends November. So that process, I thought the process was underway now to hire an auditor. If we wait until November to even start the process, we will have a gap of time, just the additional audit.
So I completely agree with you. We have not started that process, but you're right, it should be happening soon, but we would not be able to replace or continue Mr. Young's contract until November. Correct. Okay. So
there's no deputy auditor waiting. That's right. We haven't even put anything out, an announcement for that.
And so I imagine it's a conversation that me and Skevich has had about moving forward in the next 2 weeks, hopefully with Ben to determine how to put forward seeking an independent auditor and an assistant deputy. But either way, the likelihood of when they're going to be able to get hired, they'd have to undergo a background check. It's probably going to be October at the earliest. That would be the earliest we would be able to have the candidate would be in October. And that is my goal to have one. I would love to send that person or those persons to the NAPO conference. So this is some conversations that I've had with Ms. Skevich, but however, that's the earliest we'll be able to do, to be able to create the position, interview candidates, get a background check back, because I believe in Yamini, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's the auditor that does have to have a background check and the deputy auditor, right? So yes, so we'd be looking at.
I think we do all three because of security information we all having access to. So we also did it with that.
So that process is time consuming. And then in the event that something comes back wrong on the background check, God forbid, then,
You have to start
we
on.
gotta start over, or maybe we should consider multiple candidates. So to your point, I'm just saying, the likelihood of us having any the first 2 years, that'll, their whole salary is not gonna.
I guess, so, I mean, if I'm. If I'm given the direction from, or at least the. The assessment from the board that we won't have. The deputy auditor or an actual auditor by a certain date, then I feel like I'd be much more comfortable in undertaking an analysis, like. Or more confident in. But I think one thing for us to keep in mind as well too is that, we have $23,000 encumbered with Mr. Fields' budget. But there also is the option for him to renew his budget as well too, which would then cover an additional $23,000 under that budget. So when we had last visited this, that was really kind of where some of the tightness was coming from. Now, it's been about 2 months since we've done that analysis. It's been 2 months that we haven't been paying out to a deputy auditor that was accounted for, as well as administrative assistant that was accounted for as well too. So, in terms of like what's available, I think it's reasonable to suspect there will be additional funds, but I would just I will work with the budget and finance department to try to bring an updated analysis as to where we think we will be at the end of the year, what surplus funds could be available. Yes, under the assumption that we won't have a deputy auditor anytime prior to, let's say, November 1. Is that fair?
Yes, and then in consideration of that, if we do get them November 1, they're only gonna get 2 months worth of their salary.
Fair. Well, there.
Because there's a new budget. Sure.
And I think that we also need to be mindful of the fact that we had talked about engaging a potential headhunting firm to look into hiring those positions.
That was, yes, that was before, and I don't want to step on Deb's toes. I think that is brilliant. I have to pick her right. But that conversation was before we had a conversation with HR and how much they can help us, how many services that they are willing to provide on our behalf, and how pretty much they're just bringing us candidates. They don't have any picking who it is and so forth. And for the sake of just saving money, we can't go ahead, but I think, them being willing to do background check and to put out the, what is it called? Solicit, yes, the job posting and so forth.
It makes a lot of sense. We have the process in place. Why,
Yeah, why
it makes
don't we
sense
do
to
that?
have us do the posting and follow, align with how we post city jobs and assist with that, administrative aspect of the onboarding, like we did with Mr. Fields. And as far as the selection process, we just need there to assist. Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to hear that because the compensation associated with like working with headhunter usually is a portion of the salary to be paid out 20 to 25% in the first year, and that will make us really uncompetitive.
Yeah.
So all right.
So we
I
talked
will
about
keep my
that.
opinions to myself, and I will let my vote reflect how I feel.
Well, before you do that, I do want to say, I think, and Mr. Boyd, I'm sorry, I don't want to take that too much. I think the topic was brought up as it concerns what we can do for the rest of the year. Sure, with the remaining budget, but the idea, in my opinion, is this something that will be ongoing? Because what we do until the end of the year, I would imagine, would help to satisfy, depleting all of our funds and user aspects. But it doesn't take away from the fact that ongoing work, in my opinion, deserves compensation.
And I agree.
So I think they're two different things. I think use it or lose it is an analysis that says, okay, is there any other additional resources in addition to labor that could be a wise investment versus what is the fair and reasonable compensation for the work associated with this work? I think that those are two separate things. But it's certainly a method of utilizing resources. But I just want to make sure that we're clear about that. So if we are saying, okay, we are going to look at any access funds, we want to ensure that we're making the most of them so we don't lose them, then I want that, I guess, consideration to also encompass any additional expenditures that could help this board to be effective as possible. And not just, okay, that's just this. That's just where I'm at on it. But I will, and again, that's just one opinion from one individual. So I will move forward with getting a budget analysis to try to provide a sense of where we may be. If we do not hire anybody else until potentially November 1, what the access budget funds could look like, or surplus funds look like.
And we can vote on that because it was a motion, it was second. I just want to say too, this is less about the here and now and more about the future of this board. I think that those who may come after us, I think if we want to keep a level of quality on this board, I think people might have to be compensated for it at the end of the day. And again, I think being able to. And so I think it's important. I think it's important for us to look at how do we reallocate funds in order as we create a budget for 2024. We have higher compensations that are there, knowing that now when we go back to the city and say, hey, here's our budget, that's in our budget as well. So doing it based on understanding how the funds, if able, can be reallocated based on us having, whether it's different funding based on not having certain individuals. That was my original motion, my point. And if we're all paid, we can go.
And for the duration, not just till the end of the year, but after.
Yeah.
Just a regular, basically a pay increase for the board. That's what it boils down to.
But yeah, we can vote on what's on the table today and then maybe a little later this year. We can talk about the continue or even later tonight.
Well, that goes into how we create the budget.
Yes.
So if we create the budget that's in there, like again, that is a goal. Right now, all I'm asking for is that can we assess and possibly allocate funds to allow that to happen now, so that we can see what is that cost to where now we make the budget for next year that's embedded in our future budget. We have to know and understand what that looks like. Can we vote?
Yeah.
So just so we're clear on the motion that's on the table, we are voting on taking steps to move forward to conduct the budget analysis to consider potential increases or what?
Yes.
Potential.
So we are the vote right now, to my understanding, is that we're gonna vote to see if we can reallocate excess funds for our compensation to the end of the year.
Right, just take place now.
And then, so that's what's on the table. But we're also asking of you in the future, this is not a vote necessarily, to consider with us getting compensation, can we also include this in the budget for next year? These are two different topics. So we just want to vote on right now. Can we use excess funds for compensation? Support.
Given the analysis to possibly be allocated. Some of those funds.
Very comfortable voting for yes for analysis, incredibly comfortable voting for yes to analysis.
And so.
Okay.
And Skevich,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Boyd, yes. Want to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
And Skevich,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Gibbon, Reed,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Boyd, yes. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it.
It wasn't on the agenda, but,